Alrighty then, I'm going to consider this video part 2 of yesterday's video since I feel I wasn't really clear in yesterday's video since a lot of people seem to have misinterpreted what I said, but it's mostly my fault because I said some things in a very vague form. So I'm going to clear some things up and then also add more to it because there's one factor I forgot to mention that's going to make a big deal for this. One of the big mistakes from the last video was that I didn't make it clear that I meant that when I was talking about the rework champions. I didn't say rework, I said reimagining. So it should have been clear that when I say reimagined heroes, they're the ones that were so kind of imploded, completely, scrapped and then rebuilt from the bottom up. Someone like Yorick and someone like Sion was just basically very little resembles their old self. They're basically new champions. Some champions like Shen and Fiora have a lot of similarities to their old forms and pretty much function very similar. So I can't consider them reworks, not complete rehauls or reimaginings. We're gonna see a couple more, something like Warwick and whatnot. So I should have made that clear. I didn't say all reworks sucked. I just said these reimaginings tend to have this whole fringe in which they either function really well and then as a result become overpowered, or they don't really function because they're trying to become too specialized. And that leads me into the other thing. The reason why I was talking about specialized champions kind of being automatically doomed is because this game really isn't set up to support specialized champions. Look at champions like Rammus or Malphite. They only ever come out if they're something makes them broken, right? A new item or everyone else gets nerfed or something. But never, you don't see Rammus be picked if the enemy team picks all AD carries or a lot of physical damage. No, they just pick someone that's really strong at the moment, like Gragas. That's the thing. Just picking Rammus against that stuff doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a safe pick or that his weaknesses aren't there or whatever. Just a lot of things aren't there to support these specialized champions, and one of the biggest ones is the ban phase, which is why I constantly make a big deal about it, and I'm super hopeful the Riot does go through with the idea of them adding more bans. Now, some people have been stupidly saying things like, oh, but if there's more bans, that means we won't get to see certain champions. Well, if they just put 5 bans for both teams at the very beginning, then yeah, it's just going to be the same problem we have now. But if they're intelligent about their bans, we will see specialist champions become a thing. Right now, like I said, it's just too risky to pick a specialized champion and try to build a team composition from that. You sort of just pick the strongest ones and then just make the same compositions every single time. In a game like Dota 2, and I know you guys hate Dota 2, for you guys didn't know, in their international tournament, nearly 100%, I don't know the exact number, I think it was maybe 92%. Someone who knows this can probably correct me in the comments below. Of all the champions were picked, and that's basically one patch. There weren't any real massive changes or anything. In League of Legends, you can't really say, oh, in all of Season 6, these are all the champions played. No, you kind of have to go through patch because it basically changes each time. And you will see that very few champions are picked across the patches. And that's because it's better just to pick the ones at the top rather than take a risk with the specialized champions. But in Dota 2, the ban phase lets specialized champions become a thing. Basically, I've repeated it constantly throughout my videos and whatnot. The ban phase in Dota 2 is where both teams ban a few champions, then pick a few champions, then another ban phase starts, in which you basically get this chance to either like sort of read the enemy strategy and go, fuck it, we're gonna ban Janna or we're gonna ban Sona because these two champions are ridiculously good with the AD carry they picked, or oh shit, this is the comp they're going for. Let's ban this targeted ban, or let's ban these champions that could counter this composition that we're going for or something. That ban phase happens, then another pick phase happens where you can add complementary champions to the ones you were trying to make, or add or pick the champions from the pool that remains. Let's say they ban your number one choice to complement the Lucian Janna combo you have. Like, oh, I would have picked Gragas to bodyguard the Lucian and the Janna or something like that, but they banned him. So now I'll go with my next choice on the list, or will alternate our composition completely. Stuff like that can happen, and then it gets even better. After that, there's another ban phase and the last pick. So you just kind of keep bouncing back and forth, going through the list and trying to decide which champions to pick, how to counter, or whatever. This is what's going to make specialized champions matter. Right now, like I said, they just kind of don't. You just pick the safe champions and try to ad hoc make them work into the composition you want because most of them can sort of do that. Taking into consideration in Dota 2, there was a very infamous moment from a long time ago, and I brought this up before too, but I might as well bring it up again. I don't remember the specific teams that fought it, but someone who might remember, or someone who has better Googling than me, there was a moment. There's a champion in Dota 2 called Ursa, and during this time, like a couple years ago, Ursa was not really that great. Apparently, Ursa is a lot better now, but Ursa back then wasn't really all that great. However, Ursa had like the most DPS in the entire game. If you got close to Ursa, he would just giga wreck your ass so fucking hard, it would just be a laughing matter. He can man fight anyone. You cannot trade blows with Ursa, essentially. But the thing is, he gets kited like a bitch. If you think League of Legends juggernauts get kited, Ursa gets kited even worse. Essentially, that's how it is. He's like Dota 2's juggernaut, except a little bit more fragile. So, the thing is, what I remember is that one of the teams completely did not like expect this. They picked a very like melee intensive team, a very kind of like in your face composition, and their opponents were just seemingly picking things that would make sense. And at the end, the stars just aligned. Ursa, for some reason, made a lot of sense. I'm not an expert, so I don't know why he made a lot of sense. But Ursa being picked, just in that game alone, decided it just then and there. He slaughtered absolutely everyone. He was like the most perfect counter pick to their composition because they all went up in his balls. He didn't need to chase anybody. They had to fight him or else they'd lose every tower or something. I believe that's how it went. And shit like that can happen in League of Legends if the ban phase goes through. Like the enemy team can, let's say you see your opponents, all right, so you see them pick a very team fight heavy composition, and you seemingly trick them into banning anyone with great, or you ban people with great powerful engages, and you make sure they can't pick anyone that can sort of catch you off guard. So all of a sudden, you seemingly fall into this composition where you can kite, where you can wave clear, and anything. All of a sudden, this new pushing Yorick can be a great pick in top lane near the bottom of the champion select because the enemy team simply pretty much bumbled into being countered by him or being absolutely wrecked by him. All of a sudden, maybe someone like Nasus could become a thing again. Holy shit. They picked a composition that can't stop Nasus. And you banned a lot of champions that would prey on Nasus, either on purpose or inadvertently. So all of a sudden, Nasus is a big deal. And of course, just having more bans in general is going to allow you just to see more champions, just naturally. Even if they don't end up doing as much as kind of I'm hoping for, just having the ability to remove 4 more champions from the game at least just means you'll be able to take the ladder a little bit more down, right? So that's my hope for it. Sort of going back to my first video, I wanted to emphasize that I wasn't calling a lot of champions trash or anything. Think of it this way. There are a lot of champions right now that you could consider good, but not good enough. And it's not because they're terribly designed or weak or something. I mean, some champions are, but that's a whole nother thing. It's just because their betters are just far and beyond better than them. Right, League of Legends has this sort of cycle where some champions are at the top and it goes around, and yeah, that's fine and all. But the thing is, it's a very glaring issue. Like in Dota 2, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, they are all pretty useful in their situations. Tier 1 will usually be picked. Tier 2 are replacements, or Tier 1 are generally strong in their own sense because they have something else. Tier 3 are great counter picks, and Tier 4 are very specialized niche picks, and they all make sense to be picked. In League of Legends, you pretty much stick to Tier 1 or Tier 2. Look at how bad the jungle tends to be. In most seasons, there's like 3 junglers that become the top trifecta of the game, and then a few junglers below them that become, oh, Jarvan was banned, therefore I'll pick this next champion or something, right? However, it's becoming even worse in Season 6 because the champions at the very top of the jungle food chain right now are very super well-rounded. And that's really bad. When a champion is super well rounded, there's like who can compare to that? It's like who's below Gragas essentially everyone else. Like you could justify in the other metas like Jarvan may be at the very top, but in this current situation, we need this type of champion, a bodyguard tank, a an initiator like Malphite or something, and you could make a very jungle composition. Hell, even Fiddlesticks sometimes got played because of that. But right now in this meta, it's basically those three because they do everything. Look at Nidalee. Nidalee's clear speed is so beyond quick, and she's super deadly at invasions and control and pretty much everything a jungler would want. A little bit weaker in ganking, but whatever. That she preys on a lot of champions, and just existing means she gets to wreck every other champion. Graves and Kindred are so fucking powerful and deadly and basically take no damage in the jungle, it makes a fucking joke of the sustain game. Remember when sustain was a big deal for champions or for some junglers, where you could argue, oh, I'll just go in with the sustain jungler because this is something we could use right now, or this jungler brings this forth. It doesn't matter anymore. Sustain is basically irrelevant when you can just take no damage in general. And then Graves can come in and basically kill almost any jungler, so a bunch of junglers are just pointless. Kindred, Nidalee, and Graves are some of the biggest threats in the jungle, and they basically erased several junglers from existence. Like, I loved playing Jarvan a lot, but I don't even play him anymore because the second I lock him in and I see a Nidalee on the enemy team, I'm like, I just want to rage quit. She's going to hunt me down. She's going to destroy me. Jarvan isn't the most sustained and he isn't the fastest. Even if I felt like I could dunk the shit out of people, Nidalee's going to hunt me down. She's a whole minute faster than me, super sustained, deals more damage, and there's nothing Jarvan can do against her. There was a fight where I was Skarner, all right? I was Skarner and I had my little crystal shit, and Graves came in and fought me, and he fucked me up. He didn't actually kill me, but I couldn't do jack shit. He kited me and dealt shitload of damage, and I'm like, I just gotta run away now. It's like in the past, if you did that against a Skarner, he might just tear your ass apart. So it's just baffling. They changed the way the jungle works by a glaring amount. Like, again, in the past, the old trifectas, they definitely were at the top, but there was just a small gap in between them and everyone else in the jungle. But right now, it's super goddamn massive, and that's how I feel it is for pretty much other roles too. So when I say things like Poppy is useless or Yorick is useless, it's mostly because there's no reason to pick them because these champions are just super encompassing. So what I'm hoping is that just indirectly the game changes in a way that allows these champions to flourish. And I think the ban phases thing is going to be a big fucking deal and may accomplish what I just said, what I just want. If Riot goes about just forcing a Psycho, it's just going to repeat the buffs and nerfs thing. Poppy could come back and be relevant again, but she'll likely just get nerfed again anyways because the same problems that she got, the reasons she got nerfed in the past are still going to be there. Yorick could become overpowered and start a push meta, but then they'll nerf him, and then they're going to feel bad about it and buff him again, and they'll remember why they nerfed him in the first place. Riot has to sort of figure out a way to encourage different styles of gameplay to flourish rather than just one prevalent one that pretty much overshadows everything else. That's kind of the main message I wanted to get through with the last video, but I guess I just didn't get that through because I was a little too blunt with it. I wasn't a little too, I didn't explain myself too well. So with this one, I hope it at least sort of makes more sense of it, right? I also have to say that just because someone criticizes a company or something doesn't necessarily mean they hate it. Sometimes, like in my case, I could just dislike something that Riot is deciding to do or be confused by it. Also, just because I criticize a champion you like doesn't mean you need to take it personally. A lot of people were super upset over Poppy yesterday. Although I do understand because I was very vague and I didn't go into detail over Poppy and kind of, yeah, basically it was my own fault. I mostly wrote yesterday's script at work because I wanted to push out a video. I wanted to push out a video to make up for the fact that I didn't have like a video after 6 days. So it could have gone in more detail and whatnot. So yeah, I apologize for that. In the future, I'll try to, even if I'm strapped for time, go write even more paragraphs, be more thorough and whatnot, and try to be as least vague as I can. So Thank you for listening, and hopefully this rectified a lot of the issues we had with yesterday's video. This channel is supported by my sponsors, Crunchyroll and Loot Crate. Check out the description below for links to the websites. Signing up for any trials, including Crunchyroll's free anime trial, greatly supports my channel. Also remember to give the video a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't yet. I've also made a Patreon now, and if you wish to support me through that medium, then I welcome it.